Yeah, I wrote these at work today.
That's
All
not
right,
no.
everybody.
Is my
Three
picture
pages.
backwards there, or is it looking all right?
Nope, looks great to me.
Looks
Okay,
good.
super.
I
All
can't
right,
see the top
everybody.
and the bottom, but
Yeah, I don't know what does that. Weird.
sorry.
Okay, everybody. Let me
You
clear
were
my
saying
throat. We are Aquarius, and we're live. Well, you're not Aquarius, but we are Aquarius.
close
And,
enough.
you know, well, you can be Aquarius. Just, got to do
Yay.
a couple things, and then you'll be one of those too.
You got
Gotta gotta be
the
initiated.
initiation.
There's an
Yeah.
initiation process.
It's like it's like
You
a
have to,
sorority kind of,
you have to put a book on top of your head and
but we're
balance it
meaner.
perfectly.
Oh
And
man,
if you can do
my
that
head's
right,
pretty round, but I'll try. Try.
you know,
I've seen some people
you're,
do some heavy duty like waters and stuff on their heads, like it's no big deal. They're not even holding their hands on there to balance it. They trust their head.
yeah,
That's pretty crazy.
yeah.
More power to them.
It's a whole thing. Just so
Okay.
you know.
Man, I'm
You
dying.
know.
Exclusive club.
All right.
All right. So we
We
have with
we have
us
a guest today.
we have a guest down below, the Gnostic Christ.
It's
Oh,
down
actually,
below
no,
here.
it's the first Gnostic Church of Christ.
Yep.
So, but Thomas, we're talking to. How you doing today, man?
Doing good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
no problem. So, what's going on with you?
Uh, yeah, I'm pretty excited to be on you guys' channel. I've been checking your videos out. I really like it.
Obviously,
You guys
obviously.
got a great dynamic.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we've been talking on things for a long time together. I didn't know it was a thing, but
Hmm.
um.
Yeah, we do
So yeah,
quite a lot.
I guess I wanted to like run basics down. I know we were kind of talking about earlier. I'm kind of gonna get you like in repeat because like you can better describe to me what is Gnostic. I mean, Trigger, you've used that word in past episodes, but now we have an
Hmm.
expert. So what is Gnostic? And you use the word agnostic, and it's Latin and all this Latin stuff, and that's getting into more technical things. So give us a
Hmm.
rundown of like who you are and like what it is you do, and you have your own channel, and like talk about your channel a little bit because I saw you started a new series too that was pretty cool. So talk about that new series too.
Hmm.
Cool. Thanks. I appreciate it. So, I started my channel in 2015, I think it was. I was led by God to, I guess, and God was saying that this was going to be the next thing, really, that people would eventually follow. Not necessarily me, but it would be a further understanding of Christ's message, that was talked about in the book of John, that he ate, that people weren't ready for, that was sweet to the tongue and bitter to the stomach,
Hmm.
um, which is really interesting because for a while I'd gone into, from my past being very evangelical Christian, Pentecostal, even a time of Jehovah's Witness, Southern Baptist. My grandparents were really greatly part of the church. Setting in, my grandfather was setting in for the pastor. I'd gone to a period where I was, even agnostic, and then eventually atheist. And I was studying, reading books about Kant, etc. And then, I was going through a bookstore, and the Nag Hammadi library, just caught my attention, and I started reading it, and it just drew me back into Christianity, and everything that Christ talked about, all the questions I had, the inconsistency I saw between the Old Testament and the New Testament just bridged that gap, and it just brought me back, to understanding and having faith that there really is a good God. Um, but getting to your more specific questions, Brad, about Gnosticism, it's actually a Greek term, word. So I apologize if I had already said Latin. It means,
Well, you the A in front, but that neither here
okay.
nor there. Is it all
Uh,
Greek? I think it's
so
Latin too.
Gnostic basically means to know in Greek, but it's not to know like, 1 + 1 = 2, but it's an intuitive knowing. It's, that epiphany moment, like an aha moment. Like, you have that eureka moment. Maybe like Einstein had the moment where the theory of relativity came into his brain just out of nowhere, right? Why in his brain, right? That's Gnosticism. And God is feeding us, what in gnosis, what we call gnosis, all the time in our lives. It's that moment where you might feel like God's telling you not to go to the mall, right? And then you find out later there's like this huge, gigantic, traffic accident or something, right? That's not what we call Gnostic moments. But gnosis means to know. And agnostic, I was going through a series of different periods of my life where I just couldn't reconcile the brutalness of the Old Testament God with the love of Christ. And eventually, just the judgmentalness of the dogmatic church also just didn't set well with me because to me, it was moving away from this what Christ came to do, which is to tell us not to judge and to love. But instead,
Mhm.
we were making all these laws about hating people and pitting people against each other. And it just completely turned me off and eventually even made me into a non-believer. But so I had moved to agnosticism, which basically means to not know. So I didn't have any claims. At that point, I lost my faith. I neither had a faith or didn't have a faith. I just was in that quasi land. That's what agnosticism is. And then there eventually that even led me further as I started to read books on Descartes and Kant and is there a God? And it was just like an 800-page opus. And he just so nicely articulated why maybe there isn't a God. And I just got pulled into that path of atheism. So atheism basically is um, it's not really saying that you know there's not a God, but it's really saying you just don't know there is a God.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so you don't claim there's a God unless you can provide evidence. But essentially, that eventually I moved on to Gnosticism. But lastly, answering the last part of your question, yeah, I had started my series of I'm reading the Nag Hammadi and I'm doing my own sort of understanding and sharing that with everybody. I don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to be an expert. I only am being drawn to do this because I felt God had called me to do this, and I felt it was needed for humanity because God, in a dream told me, you're going to do this. And I was just laughing. I was like, not me, because, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in this stuff. But the more I read Gnosticism, the Nag Hammadi, the more I started getting more interested in the Bible, the more those two just became to more gel and make more sense. The more I got
Cool.
closer and closer to Christ.
Yeah.
But my
That's awesome. I
theory,
hope throughout.
just
I
lastly,
hope
Brad, I'm
that,
sorry
dude.
because
That
I didn't
yeah.
answer the last question. I apologize, which was
You
my
apologize. This is the
current
best
theory
answer I think I've
is
ever had in my life.
the last series I'm reading right now is called The Hypostasis of the Archons. So that's the new
Yeah,
series.
yeah, yeah. I was watching that. I watched episode two yet. I haven't watched episode three. Yeah. So.
I was watching the one
Sorry.
today that you're talking about the secret societies, Knights Templar. I just got to that point, and then you called me up. So, yeah. What you're also saying is very much like what Christ said. What when he said this, when the spirit's inside of you, you feel it. It's like a wind. You can't see it, but you feel it. So is that kind of going along that line there too?
Absolutely. Synopsis is just that inner knowing what's right for you. And
Mm.
what's right for you may not necessarily be what's right for Brad, for example. What's right for Brad may not necessarily
Right.
be what's right for you. So it's individualized to you personally. And you are
Well, absolutely.
uniquely
We all
established.
have our own difficulties. We all have our own challenges, and Jesus knows that better than anybody. God knows better than anybody
Mm.
how to help us out where we need to help. Because I
And
mean, when I was borderline losing my faith at one point in time, I ended up just praying to Jesus, and it's like you said. I mean, I don't know if it's the same term or not, but I mean, I just described it as Jesus literally like decided to just give me the straight A answers, and like I mean, it's almost like an endorphin release, let alone but it's like clarity. It's like too much clarity in everything that I felt, and I just got this calling to start going back to church and stuff like that, and the I didn't even know what church to go to because I always wanted to go back to church. Um, but I never know what church to go to. I just hate churches in general. I'm not a big fan of them. I just don't like the way they're set up, and it seems so. I don't know.
I
But either way, I found a church that I liked, like right after that, and the pastor's just such a cool guy. He's a really cool guy. You could even watch his sermons on. They don't get many views, but just about as many as us. But you can watch his sermons. That's Riverview. I'd love to have that guy on someday. He's a pastor too, but um, he's very very like badass.
Did you
And
start saying
since
certain things that kind of influenced him to
well
kind of liven up a bit?
well
Isn't that what you were telling
I'm
me the
not
last time?
I'm not positive. I mean I just when I
It's the
met him
way
and
you kind of told me. It kind
I
of seemed
introduced
like you
myself
were.
to him, and I kind of came under the idea of kind of along the lines of what you said, Thomas, earlier, that, not everything's like Jesus loves you and you're going to heaven because you know Jesus. Like, it's a little bit of work involved, and, it's not what you necessarily like to hear. Like, you know, you think that but, Jesus can show you, and it involves really knowing your scripture and all that. And I think a lot of people, they go to church on the Sunday, and that's pretty much ever since like I've met the pastor. That's like what he keeps saying. He's like, I know people want to just come to church and feel saved. He's like, but you gotta. He's like, you can't by Thursday be forgetting the lessons that I've been teaching you. He's like, we got to go throughout the entire week, and the whole purpose of as a Christian. And I don't know about what you think, Thomas, but the whole point of me as a Christian is trying to tell other people how to be a good Christian. There's nothing more than I want than to build God's kingdom with good people. And the reality is, I see the world as good. I think the world is good people. I know a lot of people say that the world sucks and everybody hates everybody, but that's like on a large scale basis. When you get to know people one on one, you find out they have difficulties, they have problems, they're just trying their hardest to get. Most people are not POSs. Most people are good people just trying. And, it's our job to kind of teach. If we know the answers, we should be teaching. So
Hmm.
that's my personal spiel.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Uh,
don't know where we're at. I have
in
so many questions to ask you too about
mm,
the Gnostic
Hmm.
view.
yeah. So I guess yeah, in Gnosticism, we say that, when Christ talks about making fisher of men, he's referring to sharing the good news, and the good news is that God loves you just the way you are, and God has also said that you are a son and daughter of mine, and therefore you are as a God. So, because, if you think about it, if I said that, whatever your last name is, Brad and Frank, if you're a son and daughter of Mr. and so, well, then of course you would be, your first name may be different, but your last name still be the same, right? And so
Hmm.
Christ was the first son of God, which implies that we thereafter there are many other sons and daughters of God. So that's to
Yeah,
me the what we
I'm
understand.
not
And
I'm not against that belief actually. I There was something else I read once where they said we can all kind of train ourselves to be this. And again, that's like it's Elijah, right? It's Elijah, not Elisha.
Elijah.
Elijah that ascended to heaven, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's along the same kind of following that we can all kind of put ourselves into a state where we can, if we're ready, we can go to heaven. Me personally, I just don't think I can go right now. Having a family and having a purpose, I think that there's somewhat part of it.
hmm.
You can't just go if you're needed in a sense, but
Yeah, you have a certain allotment of time to do what you need to do here. Um, because
I mean, in
the
that
fact
time,
is, like,
Elijah was what, like 600 some? Like,
we're here for a certain amount of time, and I honestly feel like we come here purposefully. I don't feel like we're here as a mistake. Everything we do, there's a purpose for it. And I think, like, even when Jesus said the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself, love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul, love your neighbor as yourself, it kind of meant both the things, because if we're family and we're sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters of God, loving our neighbor is like, you know, love to God Himself. Anyways, it's almost like both halves of what He said are the same
absolutely.
thing. They're the same ball. It's the same orb.
That that's really nicely put, Frank. I like that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, um, I think like if well, I have forgotten my train of thought, so I apologize. So you guys basically said everything I was going to say anyway. Put it nicely.
We like to wrap it up real fast, you know. Yeah.
Well, I ask you, Thomas, well, how do you feel about like the Catholic religion? And I mean, at that point, like the Lutheran, Protestant, Episcopal, I mean, I don't know all the differences between all Presbyterian, Jehovah's Witness. I don't know all the difference between all of them.
Mhm.
I mean, I know a man. He passed away already. He was my wife's uncle. He was a Jehovah's Witness. One of the strongest believers in Jesus that I've ever met. I mean, nothing but a good man. Nothing. I mean, you could practically he could quote you any book in the Bible. You know, what I mean, like you think in the long run, is Jesus gonna deny you because you didn't know something else? You know what I mean? Like it gets. I oftentimes, and I know this is like to convert. What about people with mental retardation and stuff? Are they not at the physical understanding to be able to grasp who Jesus is well enough and be? I mean, I met a man who clearly he's very very slow, and the stuff that he would tell me about religion was very, and I don't want to say ignorant sounding, but it was very like second gradish. And I'm thinking like, yeah, like if you believe, you'll go to heaven, absolutely. And I guess that really is. I think, as you said, how it's different for people and where to go. I think it's different for people and really in what they need to do to go to heaven. I know that sounds bad in a sense, but I feel like if you're smart minded and you're capable and and you get all these callings from Jesus to say, hey, you need to be doing this for me. I gave you the brain and the know how and the ability to say this and that and know what's going on. You need to be getting out there and helping me. And you just like, nah, I'm gonna go gamble and smoke cigarettes and screw you. I'm smart enough to be able to do this and that. You take advantage of God's gift of a good life to you. I don't. I mean, just because you still, oh, I know he exists. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if you're going to be saved in the long run. I feel like there's a lot more to it than just too many people like, oh, I believe in him. What does that mean to you? What does that mean? I
Yeah.
believe in him.
Right, right.
You know,
This is
because
great.
if you believe in somebody, you believe, and I say this like every episode probably, but it's if you're believing in somebody, then like you believe in them. Like you want to follow what they're doing. You believe in their regiment. You believe in their plan. You want to do what they're doing. That's real belief, like believing in it.
Yeah, it's interesting
Like
you brought up the Catholic Church and you bring up the question of what does it mean to believe, because Paul, who is one of the people, along with Peter,
my
that
favorite apostle.
really started the foundations of they didn't start the Catholic Church, but a lot of their thinking process sort of got that ball rolling. He talked specifically kind of on the topic that you're talking about, which is he was approached about, well, what happens to non-believers? And Paul essentially said that uh, you should be more concerned about, like, even if you say you believe in Christ by tongue, but you don't do the works that Christ asked you to do, the
Mhm.
non-believer will get into heaven before you will. Suggesting that, to get into heaven, to believe is not, like, for example, do I believe in Santa Claus? Okay. To believe is actually to care and to follow
Excuse me.
a certain way. It's like a philosophy. Like, for example, let's say I believe, um, the way that humanity can improve itself is to care for each other. That's what it means to believe. It's a way, like Christ talked about, I am the way, the light, truth. If you follow in that way, then you believe in it, whether you believe it or not. It's not like believing is not like, okay, it's what you confess with your mouth, meaning, in other words, it's, like we talk about what we believe in, and we confess what we believe in. So confessing is not about like going to the altar and saying, oh, like, look at pitiful me and all the terrible things I did and such a wretch,
Mhm.
and I believe in you, Jesus, and then go out of the church and then don't love your neighbor and judge people and stuff like that. That's not believing. Believing is, an actual way of life. Hey, hey.
How you doing? Oh.
Uh, So it's an actual way of life. It's to care, to desire, to love. That's the actual root meaning of to believe, of the Indo-European root meaning of that word. I
Brad's kid's having fun. She's
know, right? So cute. Um, so it's a way that you are, the way you live your life. If you follow the way of Christ, whether you knew he existed or not, then you are following Christ. You are believing in Christ.
yeah. That's kind of what I you know, I we even when I was young, I was a kid. I've always thought, and I've it's just an ingrained thing into me. It just I believe this. It just I believe you go where you want to go. You know, here, the afterlife, wherever. You're just you're set to go where you want to go. You're going to be the kind of person you're going to be, and how you end up being in the next life or in the afterlife will be very much like how you decided to be here. So if you just repeat the lines, say the thing over and over again, and you're not really doing the whole thing. And Brad, you're muted, so um,
I've
um,
heard you say that before, though. Like, do you think that everybody has eternal life then? I mean, what is the
I
point of Jesus then with that belief?
well, the thing is, even in the Gnostic texts, at one point there's a letter to Peter. The what is it? The it's not the letter to Peter.
I wish
Is
I
it the
could read
book
like
of
all you
Peter?
people. You know, I just
But
pray every time.
just hold on. Peter says that he was enlightened by Jesus, and Jesus said at some point that whoever was in hell will be released out of hell, but you can't like let them all know that. So it's kind of like a purgatory for certain people that were just real a-holes in life. They just didn't
You
care
know,
about anybody or anything like that.
can I say something to you?
I think
One time,
I
I
just
thought I read that in Revelation, but I don't want to, whatever, just hold it. I thought I read that in Revelation once, but
I
that
don't know if it's
apparently
in
everybody's
Revelation,
supposed to
but
come out. Everybody's supposed to come out of heaven,
there is two judgments
and
in
like
Revelation though. But
the
yeah.
people who want to be burned to fire are like apparently the people who go to hell like get burned in the long run. But I'm pretty sure there's another judgment even after that. Like the people who are in hell can still like have a chance.
Honestly, I think it's just the people. I don't know if there's torture or punishment, but I know for the most part, what was said a long time ago was shale or the earth was just emptiness. And so when Jesus says those that are cast out, there's wailing and grinding of teeth, I think it's just a place
Look,
of nothingness. I don't
the
really
bottom line
know,
is
but you know,
you get touched by Jesus, you know, and the true power. You're invincible. Your brain is 100. You have no faults or sins and all that. That's what I'm saying. Earth 2.0 is going to be sinless. We don't. That was one of my questions that I wanted to ask Thomas. Let me see if I can find
yeah,
it how I
Thomas, he's
put
got
it.
a good
Are
question
we
for you
are
about this with
are
the next
are we
possible
able to
heaven and
are
all that.
we able to maybe you can help me with this gnostic way. Are we able to understand God's plan or the purpose to life?
Uh,
Because
Absolutely, absolutely.
so you think we can?
Yes, absolutely. Uh, so, just answering, like, kind of following up with what Frank was talking about. He's talking about the letter of Peter to Philip, and he was also talking about the understanding of a kind of premonition of how we, as you know, Christ talked about, having not said ye are gods, and how we pre-design our lives before we come here. And then from there, when we are in this world, we
Oh,
are
excuse me.
essentially following through in what Gnosticism is called our name. So God gives you a specific mission. That's every one of us, not just those that are called, but everybody. Those that are called are those that are ready to fulfill that name. And life and nature will show you that all the time. It's like everything's a seed, and that seed is if you nurture that seed, it will grow. And that's why Christ talks about growing tree with many fruit, and fruit will bear whether you are a good seed or a bad seed. And God is Christ is asking you to grow a tall tree. That's your purpose. Your purpose is to grow a tall tree and to bear many fruit. And that tree is unique to you. It's your mission, and you're going to know that based upon what you feel compelled to do, what brings you joy, what brings you health and well-being and eternal life. Everything that Christ talked about, you follow through on those, then that's the purpose of life. Then it's going to bring all that goodness out of you, and it starts to manifest.
So, all right. And I'm getting, and maybe I've talked to you like this, Trigger, or not, but I'm getting it. What you're saying is just getting me into my main. The whole reason I went to like not. It's never like I didn't believe in Jesus. It's just that I just don't understand any of it, and
Mhm.
it now I'm losing my train of thought now because I just don't understand. I don't know.
All right.
So
Well, let
what
me
brings you joy? What brings you joy? What brings you joy then? I
let
mean,
me just
I,
interrupt you
just
real fast, man, because we got 8 minutes, a little
eight
more than
minutes.
eight
Gee,
minutes left. It went fast.
wah wah.
But I could see the timer running, so I know exactly what time.
I didn't even get to ask my main question about like history. Like, are you a history guy? Like, what's your opinion on the pyramids? Do you think the Egyptians created the pyramids? Do you think they're extremely older?
Yeah.
I mean, like, is that part of all this? Like, we've clearly had another. I mean, me personally, I don't care if you can say, "Nah, you're wrong." We've had another civilization before, and Jesus, was he in it? That's why we went with the Aquarius thing,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because there's cycles to all this. Jesus, it doesn't necessarily say in the text anywhere that Jesus is the first one to come back. As you know, I mean, could have came back multiple times before. He's clearly in the Old Testament. He's come back in his own form, not bringing Jesus in his own ways. So Jesus isn't necessary for him to do what he wants in this world.
Yeah, so you're talking about what's the difference between Jesus versus Christ, what's called the Christ consciousness. That makes itself evident not just through the man of Jesus, but also through what Buddhists call Bhagavatas, which essentially are avatars of the Christ energy. So when Jesus was just merely a man, but what
Right.
made him
I
unique
see what you're saying.
is the
Uh,
Christ, his ability to
well,
see
all right.
Christ. Mhm.
I can understand that we are all connected to God. We are all part of God. This is his complex. This is his world. However, Jesus, we are not all equal to Jesus. Jesus is a direct like connection to God. He is the God avatar in
So
this
we would
world,
say in
basically.
Gnosticism, we would argue that it's Christ, and Jesus was merely the physical man. So I know that the more
Well,
traditional
vice
Orthodox
versa.
use the word Jesus.
I wouldn't disagree with that if you want to consider like what is Christ the embodiment
Yeah,
of Jesus. Then that's neither here nor there because I don't understand what a person we're all the embodiment of something. I personally think that we all have our own star in a weird way in
right.
space.
Yeah,
We all
that's what
have
the Bible said, right? Like it says, the hope of glory is within all of us. So Christ is within. So we all have Christ within us.
and I can agree. I mean, and I 100% agree with that. And that's what I mean. I like the Gnostic view. I don't necessarily have any disagreements with it. I was listening to what you said. It's a bit all strange, and like I said, it's more research and all that. And I was curious about like that's why I said history. There's a lot of people coming out with a lot of things in history.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the one guy came out with that thing about 15,000 years ago. They're finding more stuff in deep seas or deep lakes or whatever. No, I guess it has to be seas. They're finding more old cities and all that, and that was 15,000 years ago. I mean, this bright insight came up with the idea that the Ricot is the Atlantis. He
Yeah.
disputed that. He said it's not. He said that can't be Atlantis. We haven't found Atlantis. Now I'm like mind boggled because the Ricot surely looks like
Oh, that's
Atlantis.
got
I
to
mean,
be it.
it's gotta be.
Herodotus wrote it down, so it has to be it.
It's circular. I mean, I don't know if that's your
It's in the
opinion or
same
not. I guess
location.
I'm branching
Herodotus
out
wrote it
on you at this
down.
point, Thomas.
So
But
Brad, going back to your question about like the age of Earth and humanity and all that, if we go by what the conventional church would say, humans only been around for 5, 6,000 years.
I don't
But
even understand why they believe that.
Right, right,
I don't
right.
get that.
But Gnosticism makes it very clear. The Nag Hammadi clarifies even further on your questions about our history, and it makes it very clear that humanity's been around far longer, far, far longer than that. And it does address your questions about things like, phoenixes, the what is it called, the Sphinx, things like that. That all of that's mentioned in the Nag Hammadi.
And
Hmm.
that's the book you're reading right now. It's an interesting book. I might maybe I'll consider reading again. I haven't read in a long time. Like I said, I'm such a no. I read the Bible. I genuinely read the Bible, and the truth is, I don't even care much about the Bible. I just like to meditate and pray to Jesus.
Hmm.
As weird as that is, I know that might but I just think like, what is the good and truth
It's
be told,
it's
doesn't really
it's
even
kind of hard to
all
read
all
a
of it
lot of
doesn't
that
even matter. Like this
sometimes.
is all my
Yeah.
private side. I mean, I also play video games on the side. I have tons of hobbies and stuff. My main thing is just being a good person at work. I'm uber friendly at work all the time, and everybody's like weirded out, like they think I'm gonna snap because I'm super friendly at work all the time because I'm always so happy. I'm happy in life. I'm genuinely happy in life. I don't really have any mysteries or questions in life. I feel like I have a good faith with my God. The only just better me being a better person and getting over my own faults.
Hmm.
It's mostly what
Well,
my eyes
but
see and
that's great.
what my mouth
Brad, I
wants.
mean,
And
sometimes I feel like, based on what you're saying, it's just like, oftentimes we get this idea that, when God talks about a mission on earth, that it's supposed to be this grand opus, or I'm supposed to go to the cross, or, I'm supposed to become a monk, but in Gnosticism, I come to see that it's very unique to each one of us. And maybe, for example, for you, it is to be a father
well,
to your daughter. It's to be someone, even this channel that
it's
you're
interesting you say
Frank.
that. Actually, it's interesting you say that. That father, my daughter, especially because you said daughter. It's even more interesting. I guess because I have a daughter, but still, this is it's just a long time ago, and I know this is a bit personal. A long time ago,
Hold on,
I
Brad.
I
Brad,
I
Brad, let me hold it. We're down to we're just above
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
Do you guys want to
we
do you
all
want to close it up, or do you want to come back and talk a
a
bit
long
more?
Yeah,
What do you,
I can
time
do one
ago.
more. I can do one more round. I don't know what you think, Brad.
I mean, I'm down for whatever. I have off tomorrow.
okay.
Unfortunately, I was supposed to go late night fishing tonight, but things have changed
Hmm.
for you. For you, Thomas.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
happy. No, that's absolutely right. I'm happy to hang out with you. And
Okay,
Saturday
if
nights are
things,
always busy for me.
I'm just saying for people watching this video now or later, if things just shut down, I'm gonna turn the window off. I will still have my
Excuse me.
voice connected, and I'll try to get everybody back in here. I don't think my picture is gonna show up this time, but your guys's might, and then we'll just continue this on. So I guess just consider it a break within a minute. But yeah,
Brr.
that's all
Let
I
me
can
ask
do
you
right
this,
now.
Thomas.
But
If you were talking to 8 trillion people right now, and you could say like one thing in one
sorry,
minute,
sorry,
what would
Brad,
it be?
Brad.
You gonna cut off his minute? No, you less than
No,
a minute.
no.
You go.
Thomas, once this cuts out, wait like a minute and then just rejoin the link. Okay.
Okay. Okay, sounds
And
good. The
Brad,
same link. The same link. Okay.
the same link, and Brad, I'll just send you
Same link.
a re-invite or just join the link. Just wait a
Whatever
minute.
you suggest, I'll do whatever you suggest.
Okay, go.
I would say that God's not an angry God. God's not a judgmental God. That's all invented by the adversary, the Satan. So you can hate yourself and hate others. God loves you just the way you are. God knows your struggles. God knows your intentions. And God asks you to do the best you can do. And Christ gave us, a follow, a way to follow him and to, the sort of the blueprint to follow. And you do that and you're on your way.
Hmm.
Bless him.
All right. Okay, we're still live. You're watching. Video cut out. I didn't upgrade my Zoom recently, so I kind of did that. I may have to do that in the future, but let's get the meeting back up if we can. If we can't, then I want to thank everybody for coming by and watching this now or later. Hope you enjoyed. But let's see if we can get a new meeting Oh no, we gotta wait about 9 minutes. You know what? I'm gonna try a Discord thing. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can call. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Nice. All right. I'm gonna add Brad to this because I gotta wait
Okay.
9 minutes. I gotta wait 9 minutes for him.
Um, I don't see a screen this go around. Does it have a screen on this one?
Um,
Let's see.
I'll have to add a screen to the video here,
Okay.
but let me add Brad in here. Create DM to direct message.
Your hair is pretty different here, huh?
Yeah, this is my alter ego.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can do this right, and it will pop in the bubble here.
Oh, what was that? Let's see.
Oh,
Did you
see.
call me twice?
Uh, oh, Brad, you're there. Good. Um,
The heck?
I have to add you on there. It's 9 minutes waiting to get that to go. So,
You mean the video part?
yeah. 9
Or
minutes
we
for,
could talk in the
so
interim.
well, we're still live. I'm just doing this Discord because Zoom is like very particular about getting their money. You know, we gotta get
Yeah, I know, huh?
we gotta get our money. All right, let me do window capture here, and so this will probably work out better. There we go. Ah, that's how we used to do with the Crow Show. There we go. Got it. Nice. Okay. All right, everybody, we're back. We're going to do Discord instead because I'm not waiting 10 more minutes to reload that. But yeah, I also had some questions too. um, I wanted to talk about Sylvanus. I didn't know if you knew about that or read about the book of Sylvanus in Nagamati. I have it here, and I was wondering what you thought about that.
Teachings of Sylvanus.
Mm-hmm. Let your mind be your guide.
Um, yeah, it's been a long time since I read that one. I mean, up to the right now, I'm currently up to the hypostasis of the archons, and it's been probably about 3 years since I read all the way through. But what I remember is something about the mind and the soul and fighting against like your emotions. Is that is that kind of what you get from that
Yeah,
text?
yeah, there is a lot of that in there. It's basically about what I got out of it, which I feel is something that I've been living, or I've been trying to live as well as I could now, is being able to control yourself. You know, there's a lot of people out there in the world that just have these addictions and they get so wrapped up into it. It affects their family life. It affects their friend life. It affects them personally. They can't get out and do anything, you know. Addictions to this thing or addictions to that thing. Um, I feel like that it is mentioned in the Bible about talking about Sylvanus, and then it's never a book in the Bible, and then you find it in the Nag Hammadi, and it just makes me think that why would you miss out on something like that? Why, you know, if you reference something and then you don't put it in the Bible, why would the Council of Nicaea not address that, considering how much you had to read? And I've only read it like 3 times, and I'm sure they've read it more than I have, and I just wonder how they could miss that connection there. You know?
Yeah. A lot of this is about, the three groups coming together. That's the Jewish, um, the heads there, along with the burgeoning Christian faith along with the pagans
Mm-hmm.
um, and the eastern and western parts of the Roman Empire that was falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to reconcile, various kinds of texts that came from all kinds of places, right? And so what they wanted to find is the most conservative of the text that lended to um, a lot of adherence to the authority. And anything that um, spoke contrary to that, self-empowerment, be able to read the text for yourself, because a lot of that led to why the empire was fracturing, because there was a lot of disagreement and turning into kind of what you see in the U.S. now, where people just had very stark disagreements. And so Constantine, along with the council, really felt it was very important to, really make the canon very conservative and very encouraging toward, sort of like your moral agency being submitted to the church and to the government, sort of like making those two bodies into one, which John warned about the two beasts, the church, the religion, and the government, when they come together, wrapped in a flag, so to speak.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's what you have, and
Check.
why Christ also,
Check.
had
What's
to
going on?
he had to walk very lightly and on eggshells when he
I
was
cannot hear
walking.
anyone,
Can you hear
but
me?
I know everything's right with me.
Can you hear me?
I'm not sure we switched over to Discord now. I was unaware.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
I can see your guys, but I can't. It might be my microphone. Let me. Oh, it might be because I'm not. Hold on, that might be me actually.
Here, hold on a second.
Preferences. What the heck's preferences? What the
I
heck?
gotta tell him what to go to here. Uh,
Check.
I can
And
hear you.
we can definitely hear you, Brad.
All right. All right. I'm good. I can
Here,
hear
go
you.
go to
I had to change things over because it's Discord.
go to the mic only, man. Because I already
Huh?
go. Well, okay. Let me change things up here
Uh,
then.
uh, uh. You mean this?
Yeah.
Can you
Okay.
hear us now?
Okay. Good.
Going full podcast.
We are we have gone to podcast mode here. Well, I mean, we kind of were, but you know, Zoom, 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 Zoom. If only you'd work better like you used to.
Thomas, what's your favorite verse slash anything you've read in like the Gnostic or something
Yeah.
that's very old, but also could be a Bible verse. What's your favorite one? What's one that stands out that makes you
Yeah.
who you are?
I really like the Gospel of Thomas when he says that if you bring forth what's within you, um, then you'll find yourself and you'll find eternal life. But if you don't, that it will destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. It's so hard because like listen, I'm a guy who gets and Trigger, maybe you don't even understand the struggles of me, but I'm a guy who gets like panic attacks. Try to do things early in the morning, like around. I wake up basically if I wake up at 5 o'clock till like 7:30, I'm like throwing up. Like it's just a guarantee. It's very difficult. Like I can't really like function well. I don't know. They have names for it, but like I don't know. I'm old, so doctors don't really like know names for it and stuff. But there are names for it now, stuff like that. But I don't know. It's just like I want to be more in life. I want to be more. I wanted to be a first responder and try to save people's lives but like sometimes I get really like I can't move and I get sick and I don't know. Like, I don't want to put myself in a place where I'm sick and I can't like help somebody else when that's my job.
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure. I mean, I do my job every day and I'm fine, but like, I don't know. I can't be too high demand. Like, I can't go to the gym every day and start working out. I would love to, but I'll get sick. I'll just start throwing up, and it's just frustrating. Throwing up every once in a while is like, yeah, it's part of it. But man, after you start throwing up like everything, it starts getting frustrating. Hey, you can't keep doing it. Something's got to change. So you start living more comfortably where you don't have to throw up. But yet,
Yeah, throwing up's a bummer, man.
that's like a that's like a weakness. I'm not sure what to do. I'd love to hear like, I know that's more complex
Yeah.
than
How do I not
because
throw
I love
up?
like I want to do more, and I balanced my life out where I found ways around it, but like there's still limitations. Like, I mean, I used to work jobs where I worked 18 hours a day. I mean, like I've survived even despite, I don't know, like somehow, because that's the thing with like it's like mental. Like it's only if your mind thinks about it. Somehow, if you, but like I don't know.
So
One
Brad,
time I saved my niece's life.
wow, that's
Dramatic. Gave her mouth to mouth. She was dying.
wow, that's intense.
Yeah, and I loved it. It made me feel like I was like, man, I really should be a first responder. But I don't know. I get scared to do that kind of stuff because I don't want to. I would run into a burning building. I'm so gifted, I mean, I don't even eat healthy all the time, and yet I'm still athletic. I don't even work out, and yet I can still like. I went to that thing, and I went across all the things in the water where I saw the other dudes. That guy looked like David Goggins, and he fell off.
American
And
Ninja?
I'm a big belly. Well, it was like a net, and those like lily pad type things that float in the water.
Oh, okay.
They're like like they're made of foam,
I thought you were talking about like an American
but
Ninja
like
course or something like that. Yeah.
and
Those are fun to
you
watch.
you climb across the net, but like the net gets only like 4 feet in the middle, like because it's drooping. So I'm 6 feet, so I'm like hanging, I'm like limboing, going across this thing, pretty much like arms, and you're trying to keep and I made it. I made it across. And my daughter, I looked over at my daughter because we were racing. I didn't even pay attention to her. I should have been paying attention to her because, what if she drowned? There's a lifeguard on duty though. But like she was on the fourth out of six. She was almost catching up to me. But I made it across before her because I didn't even know where she was.
So
I was like thinking like I can do this.
yeah.
I'm still strong, is what I'm saying. Like I should be more. I need to be more in life.
Well, Brad, I mean,
Or
when
I'm rambling.
way I understand the Gnostic text, like when it talks about bringing forth what's within you, it's not about what you accomplish. It's about um, knowing how to get in touch with what is best for you, what is like in your best interest, and that like God probably has a reason why you're not doing
Well,
that right.
that's what I'm saying. And I ask you that same exact question. If all of
Mm.
a sudden tomorrow this video, let's just say this video somehow went viral, and let's say 300 to 400 million people started following us, and they're like, "Hey, I want you to teach me your ways." Can you genuinely do it? Can you genuinely start? Do you start feeling nervous to guide 400 million people towards Christ, or do you genuinely feel comfortable and strong enough in your faith in Christ that you can lead other people into the faith in Christ and
Wow,
do a proper faith that
that's a
you're not a false
really
prophet
that is a
that
really
you
intense question. That's a crazy question. I mean, that's a really awesome question, really, is what I'm saying. That's just like no one's asked me that before. That's crazy.
well
Crazy question.
that's what me and Trigger think about. We think about that. We don't want to be false prophets amongst people. We want to teach people the true salvation, and I believe we genuinely know it. It is through Jesus. It
Hmm.
is the way, because I oftentimes think Jesus is love. the direct correlation is Jesus is love, and that's what God's trying to say is that if you have love in your heart, like I'll accept you in. If you're going to be good to others, and like because what if a person doesn't know who Jesus? He never got told the Bible, but he's a good person. You're telling me he's going to hell? There's no way God's saying no to that person.
Right.
Not the loving God that I know, or at least the one that I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that he's going to deny someone just because they didn't get the chance to know Jesus. That's stupid to think.
Yeah, that's kind of what Thomas was saying earlier too, right, Thomas? You were saying
Yeah.
that particular
Yeah.
thing.
About yeah. Sorry to take away more, but along that's what I'm saying about it. I like the Gnostic idea that it's more amongst yourself and my belief, at least that I understand it. But just like I said, they're so technical. All these hidden texts and all that kind of stuff that I never know what to. I mean, is the Namagadi, is that like, what is that? Is that like somebody's book, or is that like somebody wrote that, or is that like ancient text, or what exactly are you looking at in that? What is that?
So it's basically a collection of texts that were found in a jar in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. So that's why they referred to it as Nag Hammadi. Um, the 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 understanding is that it is part of the original text that was written, but it was stored away to protect
And is
some.
that the Book of Enoch and all that kind of stuff, or
No, the book of
is this
Enoch
all the same place, or
yeah, the Book of Enoch is along the similar lines in that it was not included in the original canon. So it would be sort of like in that same vein, but it is a separate set of books or texts that you could consider, the Book of Enoch also being similar to a Nag Hammadi finding.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really similar to that. Yeah, it's basically you could think of it as just more texts that were found that were the reason they weren't found initially, like when we found the sacred scrolls, is because they were stored away in a jar in a cave, and nobody had access to them until a farmer,
Well,
stumbled
like
on them.
like you said that maybe that was already a part of it, but Constantine stuff ripped all that stuff out a long
Yeah,
time ago. That it just all got separated throughout
yeah.
history. I mean, history has its way of destroying and changing things.
But I think
That's
also
it's
that, Brad, I believe also that it just was something that man was not ready for. Christ had talked about that there would be more
Mm-hmm.
teaching that people were just not ready for. And John had a vision of that. And Christ had said, go ahead and eat this book because man's not ready for it. And and they had asked him, well, how will we know when the time is that this truth will come out? And he says, you'll know when you follow the man with the water jug. And the totem or the picture for
well,
the
hey man, we're Aquarius. That's the
yeah, it's
symbol,
It's
Aquarius.
the
man. It's water
time.
jug.
We got the
Yeah,
picture right there.
yeah. And it just so happens that the text was found at the cusp of Aquarius.
Yep.
So
So yeah, I mean that was like my last thing. It's just I mean we already talked about it. I just repeated. It's just like history. It's interesting how history is really kind of coming out now, and
Mm-hmm.
and people are just all tying together on it. I don't know. It's just interesting. I think me personally, I don't understand how there's still wars at this point for like religion and all that. It's just like and there's some differences. I just don't get it. There's just some differences. Like, you genuinely all believe in like the same like how is there a different?
Remember, Brad, when we talked about the fact that there's the Synoptic Gospels and then the Gospel of John and things like that. It's like that's kind of where I got my understanding of the higher meaning of what Jesus had to say. So when John was the beloved, or John was the one that Jesus chose to talk to more, I think it's just that John kind of understood the message better, and so he didn't get
The thing is,
different kinds of messages
I
that
have
were like a little harder to understand. John would kind of translate them easier for you to kind of get the grasp of what's going on. And I think that's where they go into a little more detail in the Nag Hammadi, as they kind of try to
I wouldn't
mention
be
what
surprised.
Jesus was trying to get to in a certain fashion,
I wouldn't
versus
be surprised if so many Muslims the like like the day that Jesus comes back, like so many Muslims are just and it's like okay, Jesus is there and they see it and they're like, okay, I was wrong. Like you're right. Like Jesus, like they're gonna feel it. They'll feel it in their bodies. Like okay, Jesus is the truth because they're good people. There's lots of Muslims that are good people. I mean, I can't genuinely think that just because they genuinely like, they think that Jesus was just a good person and the prophet. Like I don't know. It just gets so jumbled to me that it's. I mean, like I really just think that like God just wants good people. But like then again, like I don't know. Like I'm look. I'm sick minded, and there's really nobody I've ever met that's quite as extreme as me. But like even the most misguided people, like well, they're only misguided because we live in a sinful world in the first place. Is it really fair that they're destroyed? That their personality is destroyed? I mean, if they're a creation and they're a soul, I mean, it's not fair that they're destroyed if they were brought if their only personality is brought it or that's saying that we don't have free will and we only have fate that we are already fated out because that's who we originally were.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying, or am I completely like I'm just rambling at this point? But I'm just saying like I think lots of I mean there's somewhere I don't remember where it was. Maybe it was John or it was James or something. Or lots of people are going to come and Jesus is going to deny them, and they're going to say, like Jesus, why? Like, I think this is all going to come down to it. That if you're not a good person, you can be all the faith you want, but if you're like just a shitty person, I don't think you're going to really be accepted, or you're going to have to redo it, or maybe that's what reincarnation is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we have reincarnation after Jesus. I think after Jesus, reincarnation is over.
Mm-hmm. Well, Christ does call that the resurrection, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about what does sin mean and why do people do bad things, and you hinted on a lot of it with your bringing up the book, the letter of Peter to Philip, Frank, and then Brad, you talked about your own personal struggles. Really, it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to that, the struggles that everybody have, and a lot of it is led by fear and just being human. Our bodies are not perfect. They're broken, and that's where people misconstrue the brokenness of this realm with themselves, because that's what the powers that be want you to believe in. That's how they have power over you. That's how they cause people to be pitted against each other and to hate one another because they're busy pointing out, so quote unquote, the sin of someone else. And like Christ talked about, why do you pay attention to the straw in your brother's eye when you pay no attention to the log in your own eye?
Exactly.
That's the whole thing that caused this whole, like you're questioning, why are there still wars and why is there hatred and why is this idea that what Christ's message was just, oh, I'm supposed to believe in him like 1 + 1 = 2, and that's it. That's that whole message of Jesus. No, that's not. That's completely been topsy-turvy 180 on its head. It's exactly what you were saying, Brad, and that's Frank was implying. It's about the walk. It's the way of trying to be as close to the embodiment of Christ as you can be.
That's my my
It's going to help you ascend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to say real fast too
Matthew 7:21.
was Brett, can I just want to say like
Go ahead.
what
Say it.
Thomas, you were saying earlier about or wait, maybe no, you didn't mention that, but where is it in which part of the Nag Hammadi does it say that? I think it was probably the letter of Peter that he was saying to be wary of the authorities and the powers and the dominions, and it was talking about these angels or these false angels or these entities that try to rule over us, and try to guide us, in not
Well, that's what
the greatest of
I
ways.
agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. That's what I mean. There's so much falsehood in the world anymore. That's why all I like to do is pray because I don't know what else to. I don't know.
So that's on the
Even I
origin.
doubt my own prayers.
that's on the origin of the world that you're referring to, that, to be, watchful and leery. Essentially, that what's called the shadow that is in lurking all the time, to take the message of God and Christ and turn it 180 degrees on its head to get everybody to follow the opposite of everything that Christ had taught. And a lot of times you're going to know that because Christ said that the way is narrow and few that follow it. And if you've got like billions of people following something, you should probably, that should clue you in right there pretty quickly, you know. And a lot of the reason why people follow that because it's easy, because it's very easy to just point a finger at somebody else and not do your inner work. Very
Mm-hmm.
easy to be afraid and to be the person that steps out of the crowd, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what Christ talks about, the black sheep. That's why he goes after the black sheep. This is the whole story is about that. The prodigal son. That's every one of us are a prodigal son. So
Mm.
that's the whole story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the words. No, I agree with you. It's
Mm.
whether or not reality is that this is only your reality and this is your life, and that, excuse me, that's all that exists. It's egocentric, but it's like we don't know the what is reality. We don't. We only have an idea of what our senses tell us,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to accept that, and that's like the hardest part
Mm-hmm.
about life in general is that we don't know what's right next to us. We don't know what anything's made of. We just, we can keep figuring. That's why I said earlier to you about, the rabbit hole, Alice in the rabbit hole. It's the Gnostic idea of it is it's so intriguing to me and it's so cool. And it's actually book smart. You're actually reading real text. It's not just some belief or some philosopher's idea, you know, and I think it's so cool as we're entering. It's truly trigger. I mean, we really called it on the We Are Aquarius because we really are entering into like a new age
Yeah.
of how people think and what people do. Thomas, well, I got you. Like, what's your opinion on all this? Like, Elon Musk and AI and it's just
Oh,
not
that's a
necessarily the same idea of
that's a
AI,
huge
AI,
topic,
but
man. I mean, we could talk a little bit
well, I
about that,
mean,
but
like, but I mean, like, do you consider? Well, one time you and me, Trigger, we even talked that, like,
mhm.
like Satan could very well be connected to the AI algorithm if he needs to be, that he can influence people regardless to what the AI algorithm would say,
Mm.
you know, and it's interesting to me, like we're entering into this ability, you know,
Well, it's like what
are you okay? Like,
you know, what I was saying too is the Aquarian Age. It sounds so simple, but in the Piscean Age, everybody's following a school of thought, a school of this, a school of that, a school of fishes, or moving around, and it's like people end up doing the thing that they go, into to be a part of. So let's say they go into a crab house where they're selling crab meat. They might act kind of crabby. They might shell up. They might, people want to kind of get into the theme of things, when it comes down to reality. And a lot of people do this. If they go to a dance club and a dance club is in the 60s or the 70s, people will dress up to that time frame to be a part of that club or a part of that thing. You go be part of a game, you
I
want
like
to
I like to
become a part of
follow
that
the
thing.
seasons.
But like my point is, in a school of, the previous age, everybody's trying to be a part of one solid group thing. The Aquarian Age, it's the man pouring out the water, air side, turning from what is air into water. I mean, this very thing that we're doing right here with the communication is just all airy, but then it turns into a liquidy kind of solidified thing that's out there. So this age of communication, I think this is kind of the mark of it. The Mayans marked it on a calendar. It was
Thomas,
proximate of the
I have a
time when we're
question for
moving
Thomas.
into like internet phase, and so I think this age is just kind of a part of that. And it sounds a little ethereal, but in a way, it kind of is, and that's just kind of how I see it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, picking up on
Well, I have
that.
a question for Thomas
Yeah.
too. Well, go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead. I'll remember my question.
No,
Go
just
ahead
picking up
if you have
what you
something.
said, you talked about Brad, and then also Frank is hinting at that, we're entering into the age Aquarius. So the time prior of the opposite of Pisces is Virgo, which is an Earth sign, and so that's the opposite is always the complementary to what we're trying to discover, and the opposite of um, Aquarius is Leo, and so you had people following after leaders. Now it's everybody's following as an individual. But the point is,
hmm
the previous age was
Interesting.
all about getting to know the body, getting to know the body through our emotions. Now we're moving into an age of getting to know the soul and the
hmm
spirit. And the soul is the water, and the spirit is the air. And this is where they conjoin under the Aquarian age. So when you brought up Elon Musk, it's very intuitive of you, Brad, because this is actually walking right into the space of trying to understand we are more than just our bodies. And so this idea that somehow we're going to lose our soul or our spirit, that if you go and you get an artificial heart or you get an artificial arm or an
mm,
artificial head, so forth and so on, you know, this is all meant to happen and unfold because it's helping us to
hmm
understand much more
Right. I
deeply.
agree.
You know what? Actually, that
Man,
makes a lot of
what a
sense.
cool
In
guy you
effect,
found, dude.
yeah, dude. You know what's so cool about this? Jesus was kind of giving you the hint that he was the icon for the next age. He was leading us into the Aquarius
Absolutely.
age, right?
Amen. He was, in fact,
Doesn't
the
that sound like it? Like he's talking about you're gonna find the guy with the picture. He's kind of like, hey, this is kind of me, and then everything he's wow. Go ahead, Thomas. I'm
All
sorry.
right.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's basically what I was going to say. And then we're entering into an age where we're basically balancing the male with the female. So that's why you got a lot of these topics coming up right now. You've got this introduction of wisdom, which is also known as Sophia, which is a counterpart to Jesus. But that is basically what's happening in this time right now, right? And you've got your first AI being named Sophia. So everything is happening exactly the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to
And
unfold.
and and the people know that. I don't want to say like the elite because that gets into the whole. I hate the word Illuminati because that's so typical, but it's like you started getting to think like how many people actually know what's really going on in the world. I mean, Sophia was named Sophia for a reason. I mean, there's none of all this stuff was like there's a group of people that want to push for this like next generation in a weird way. It's like they
Is it
know they're
crazy?
supposed to
Is it
and they
crazy
do
if I
it.
think that Sophia wants to become real, so she chose to go through that robot to try to be real, but she can't fully manifest? Or is that just somebody trying to do some esoteric thing and throw Sophia in there? Because I've always liked the name Sophia, but then, when I was reading about the Nagamani, I'm
Listen,
like, really? That's
I'll tell you a
interesting.
story. Let me tell you a story. I don't want to cut you off. Let me tell you a story. There was, and I'm going to
Okay,
butcher the
okay,
story
but
because it's so basic.
tell me the story, but then I want to hear what Thomas has to think about what I just said here,
Okay.
once he gets a chance.
I it might have been from Joe Rogan even. I'm not sure, but there was like a time in the 1500s where the Columbus or somebody along those lines came over and they knew that there was like a special time going on where they were going to be worshiping the next god coming in and all that and you know it, they portrayed the character of him. They said, "Yeah, like that's me" and all that.
hmm
It's they knew it. Like it's all there is an elite part of history that like certain people know and like they play it. And I'm not saying that it's like that they shouldn't. They should almost because it is a part of like we're connected to the stars. It's weird, but we are. It's weird. I'm not. I think that might be satanic in a way that we are. I'm not positive, but we're connected to the stars. Like things happen at a time they're supposed to happen,
Absolutely. This is what we're
regardless to
talking
what we
about,
think.
right? Piscean age going into the Aquarian age. So the going back to the you touched on and your sort of like musing about Sophia, and did she perhaps want to embody herself into a physical
Mm-hmm.
form?
Mm-hmm.
In Gnosticism, we talk about every being being part of being three parts of the body, of the soul, and the spirit. So we're essentially a spirit. We're not a body with a spirit, but rather we are a spirit that happens to be in a body.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
connection between the two is the soul. But to
Mm-hmm.
answer your question and get at what Brad is also suggesting, um, what's essentially going on, there's what's called a pure spirit, which is the Holy Spirit that's in all of us, that's the hope of glory, the Christ. And there's what's called an artificial spirit. That's where we get the archons, so forth and so on. Then we're getting into sort of like the philosophy that you get from the Greeks in about the imperfect spirit and the image that the archon, the first archon, the demiurge, had seen at the time, at the beginning of when he started creating mankind and the angels and the devils and the demons. He had seen a reflection of the perfect, but he couldn't maintain it. But he wanted to be God, so he tried to create a mock, basically a mock version of what God initially intended. This is what resulted from Sophia's chasing after God, uh, not truly being able to embrace that God loved her just the way she was, and so she brought about this sort of a dark idea that she is not lovable, and that brought out sort of an abortion of the demiurge, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what resulted in sort of this shadow, and that's what you're seeing. So, getting to what you're saying, Brad, yeah, all this is happening because these gods know, like this demiurge and the archons, they know that in order for them to continue to have dominion over humanity, they've got to follow after the script of the original creator, and that's what they're doing. So they'll follow that, but the original creation is not going to be thwarted, so you don't need to
So
worry about that.
so I want to
Mm-hmm.
ask you a question,
Yeah.
and I also want to like pre-answer my question with my own belief. My question is going to be, do you think we're in the end of times? And my pre-answer is, as a firm believer of the Aquarius cycle, we're nowhere near even judgment cycle, let alone the end of times cycle. Like, which I'm not even sure what like. I mean, we're no like Libra has to be the judgment. That makes sense, and that's like 8,000 years away. So I think we're like in this like really really middle cycle and even though we're in the beginning of Aquarius, like it's not. I think that's what like it's all about. What are we gonna do with our knowledge?
So,
I
Brad,
think that
you're talking about
everybody keeps saying. I don't want. Let me just finish. Just last. It's the last sentence. Everybody keeps saying we're about to end things. I personally think we're about to begin things.
Mm.
But go ahead. What do you want to say?
no getting to what in Gnosticism we call an age versus an aeon. So you're talking about what's called the procession. That's a 26,000 year period. Then you're talking about Libra, and then the 2,000 year period is a completely different
Right.
cycle. That period is called an age. And the right now we're actually what's called the cusp, and usually the cusp is about 5% on either side of a sign. So essentially we're transitioning from Piscean age into the Aquarian age. And when you're in
Right.
that sort of domain of that cusp age between two ages, you're going to see tremendous disagreement because you've got the old way that is clashing with the new way that's coming in. But
And
the ultimate
and
judgment that you're talking about, that 26,000 year procession that you're talking about, we are actually pivoting into the into from Virgo going into Libra because there's two layers of it. That's when Ezekiel talks about the circle within the circle. But anyway, because originally it started at the Sphinx. It started between Virgo and Libra, and we just passed that. We're going to be passing that again in about 3 years when you've got not 3 years. I'm sorry, in about 20 years when you have Pluto passes Pisces from Aquarius into Pisces.
yeah, that's interesting because it's even the same thing. Well, I don't know. It could have. I feel like Jesus always had two meanings to things. When he said you cannot put old wine skins or new wine in old wine skins. It just kind of correlates to what you're saying with that. The ways of the old when he's
Well, he
brother
he
against
disagreed with the
mother,
ways of the old
daughter against father.
when it came
It's
in.
He came to bring the. He said he came to bring the sword, and what that means is at the end things are getting cut. That the ways of the old aren't going to work with the ways of the new, and
Which
so
is what I'm wondering. Are we really in the end of times, and this is just still the end of Pisces, and we haven't quite entered into Aquarian? We want to, but
We're in
is
the
apocalypse supposed to
my
happen
belief is
now?
that we're my belief is we're in the cusp range. So we're in a 200-year period where is we're going out of going into
It's
the end.
definitely 200 years. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. I've researched it enough down that it's
So we're going
and
from we're going into the end,
there's
and
rumor that
they actually happen at the same time, is what I'm saying. It doesn't isn't like
there's
okay,
rumor
it just
there's
starts in
rumor that we were lied to, and this is just random off the thought, but I'm saying that we were lied to about 200 years in the Dark Ages. That 200 years of history just doesn't seem to line up in a lot of our history. But like, how is that supposed to be with carbon? There's no way scientists would all go along with that theory. So I'm not really into believing it. Same thing with a flat Earth theory and all that kind of stuff. There's no way every scientist would be like, yeah, let's fly, just to keep fucking with them. This is stupid.
well,
I don't know. You think the flat Earth theory is true, Trigger?
I think that was kind of a psyop for other things. You know, I think what ended up happening is, they got caught with their pants down in a sense. They were putting up hot air balloons in the air, and they're saying they got all these satellites out there, and they just decided not to.
What about hollow Earth theory, though? What about hollow Earth theory?
I'm not sure about that.
That's hollow Earth theory. Is
honestly, what I think, I kind of believe a little bit of this other YouTube.
No way.
Hold on, listen to me for a second. Jeez, hold on, man. I kind of believe what this other guy did. He talked about the Earth rotating, with the pole shifting and all that. And I think when they drew those maps, they drew them according to how the Earth looked at that time, from east to west. And you don't really draw the north and south too much because that's where the poles are. That's where it freezes, and that's where it always freezes.
Yeah, the poles change.
So when they draw these maps and they look a little different, and there's some more land here, there's less land here, I think the Earth is shifting and moving and moaning and groaning and moving around because everything moves. Earth moves.
I think the Earth has changed so much that everything we've opinionated in the last 20,000 years, like the Earth will just look so much different. We're just clueless.
But honestly, I think the Earth, the Armageddon thing that's going to happen is just, it's a shift in consciousness, but it's also a shift in reality too. We might actually have more this destruction.
It's weird to think about. We don't even know what we are or what creates consciousness. Anything in the world that changes can mess with us completely. That's what's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I'd like to know what you think about this, Thomas, though, because with the Earth, with the changing consciousness, do you think the Earth also kind of...
Thomas, do you believe in aliens?
You're asking me personally? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there is a likelihood that there is more than human being because of the size of the universe. But if you're asking,
would God save them, or are we His only chosen ones, and they're just creations due to the?
I think they have their own.
I would say that the way to truth and light is something that's universal. So it's not like, Christ just catered it to humans. I'm not saying that he went to other planets. I have no idea, but I would say that Christ's message is universal. There is no multiple truths. That is the way, the light. He talked about it being the way. He didn't say it's.
I love it, man. I love it. It's great. What a great answer. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah. It's 100%. I mean, it doesn't even matter if there's aliens or not. There is only really one way.
Yeah, amen. So you were saying, Frank, I'm sorry, you had asked a question, but then you had asked me about what was the question you had asked? Sorry.
Well, how people say the Armageddon's coming, and the Revelation kind of talks about it. Revelation
consciousness of Earth. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, I kind of think that the way Revelations is written is more of a dreamlike essence. I don't think it's physically going to happen specifically the way they say it's going to happen. I think everything's it was given in a dream format, so this thing could represent this other thing, and then it gets confusing. But I think some of that stuff might end up happening with certain destructions coming down on the earth and things like that. I kind of think maybe the end spiritually coincides with some kind of physical destruction of something, so I think the earth does change a little bit.
But
Um,
but are
but
we?
I wonder
You
what
think
you
it's
think.
soon?
Soon, I'm not asking that question. I'm
Why?
just
Why?
asking Thomas,
Why?
hold on, Brett.
Why do you think?
Do you think that they both kind of coincide at the same time? What do you think
Yeah,
about
I
that?
mean, yeah, that's a great question. Like I would say that the way I understand it is that my understanding of Revelation is it's a set of things that get revealed. I don't know how familiar you are with the tarot cards, but essentially it's a map of how end times happens. It's not going to specify for you when it happens or how it happens, but it specifies for you in a more metaphysical way at which endings happen and transitions happen.
Hmm.
Like you go through each one of the chapters, just like there's 22 chapters, there are 22 tarot cards. So each one of those chapters are, you could think of as representing a tarot card. I'm not saying to follow tarot, no, I'm just giving you an analogy, right? Uh, so the first
Hmm.
chapter kind of gives you a blueprint of how you are made, sort of like the fool, and then you have this revelation that that Christ comes and visits you or whatever, and then you move on to the magician and so forth and so on. So you go down those 22 chapters. That just talks about the way in which an ending happens and transitions into something new
Hmm.
and every the process that takes shape. So does Earth then also have its own consciousness, and does it, we can speculate on these things, but if you're asking me personally, I think that everything is alive, and has its own, uh, if we want to call it a consciousness, like, if we want to anthropomorphize it, we could
Hmm.
call it a consciousness. But I think that maybe Earth has its own sensitivity, is the way I think of it. Like you could ask, does a plant have a consciousness, for example? I think they found that in laboratory tests now, they found that plants do have stimulus to pain, and they get better or they thrive when they're given attention and love, and even thrive under certain kinds of music and not under other kinds of music. So I
Hmm.
think that already kind of gives you a hint that yeah, there's some kind of consciousness or some kind of sensitivity to
I
stimulus.
I
Hmm.
I don't know how to. I personally think we don't even know what consciousness is in the real world. Like you said earlier that you think we can understand God's plan. I don't. That's where we differ.
Oh
I
well,
don't think we
Brad,
can understand it.
Brad, no, no, no. So I'm sorry if I misunderstood your question. I'm not saying that we could ever understand God's plan. God, that will always be beyond us. But what I'm saying is,
Well,
what we can understand is what what plan God has for us specifically
oh,
in a very general sense.
fair enough. That's a great answer,
Hmm.
or a great rebuttal anyway. Solve my solve my difference. Um, yeah, no, because I don't. I mean, I oftentimes think like, is this necessary? Is life necessary to be able to even? I mean, this can't be a weeding system. There has to be more than life than just a weeding system on who's gonna go to heaven and become God. Because I've told my pastor, I said that I personally don't. I said there's less in heaven than there is in earth, or in hell. And he said, "You want to think that?" And I said, "No." I said, "In heaven, there really only is God's plan, and that's it. And there's no sin, there's no, there's no video games, there's no, pleasures, there's no sports, none of it exists. Only God's plan must exist in heaven.
That's
We are
interesting.
soldiers or whatever job it is that we're supposed to be. What reason we exist for his glory as we understand. But what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Glory.
Well, Brad,
How are we supposed to
uh,
resemble,
if you have to look at it like this, you have to look at it like let's say we were there beforehand, right? And then we were given the opportunity to come here, or maybe God just was like, "You're going there, and you know whether you like it or not." And then you're a little baby, and you're like, "Yay, you know, I like being here." Um, you have to live the life to understand what it's like without somebody holding your hand. At some point, you have to take off the training wheels to let the child understand how to get on the bike and ride for themselves. This is kind of like I thought about this too. It's like we're like birds in a nest, and the mother bird kicked us out. Now we have to learn to fly immediately. We're either going to fall and get hurt, or we're going to learn to open our wings and fly. It's like this is our staging point. This is our takeoff point where we get to actually get off the ground and learn how to fly. And not
And if you
everybody's going
fly,
to be
you get
able to,
eternal life.
and not
Eternal life.
not everybody's going
And
to do it. Now, I can't say personally. I think if people reincarnate, maybe they wanted to come back because they didn't learn how to do something, or maybe they just don't come back, and maybe they stay in heaven and they didn't learn the lessons they wanted to learn or needed to learn. I don't.
could you
I can't
handle
say I
eternal
know,
life?
but the thing is, like, I think honestly, like what Jesus already said in the Bible, he already met Abraham before he was born. So how would you know that? And then the Pharisees or the Sadducees were like,
But
what?
I
It's like
mean it.
you
I
can't.
mean it,
It's outside of
Frank.
time. You know?
Frank,
Yeah.
could you
What?
handle eternal life?
If Jesus saw it
Could you?
before, yes. If Jesus saw Abraham before he was born, and we are also sons and daughters of God, then it's very possible we already knew what we knew coming in here, and then we forgot. It's possible. I'm not saying that's the absolute, but I'm saying it's possible. And if that's the case,
What?
um,
What is existence? We're all just part of God's thought process anyway.
what I'm trying to get at is
At
if
at
we
a
are,
blip of its moment, we could choose not to exist. We could be not with no purpose, no
yes,
reason.
yes, it's possible, and it's possible. But the thing is, like, if we come
What
here
purpose? What
to
purpose are
be,
we?
to let me try to
What are we supposed to create?
let me try to answer. We came here to understand how to be on our own, to understand that there's more to life than just getting a chance to do
Could you
things for ourselves.
could you be a god? Could you be a god? I couldn't, for sure. I couldn't.
Well, then that's your
I'd need
answer.
another like 100 plus thousand years of training.
I think honestly, though, there's a lot of people that come here, and there's a lot of celebrities, and they go off and they say, "Oh, I'm a god, and I
I
can
would
do
try
this, and I
that.
can do that." It's like, okay, you can brag about that, but try to just snap your fingers
God
and
is not
just
about
create something like that.
ruling people.
Try to, I
It's not even about fear and love.
Thomas, you want to take
It's
over
about
here? I'm trying to make a point. I don't know if I'm making it right, but um, do you see where I'm coming from? I think you might be on the same line
Well, I
here,
would
but
say like what Brad was saying
oh,
earlier about
oh, our sons.
when Brad was talking about like we were created for the glory of God. Um, a lot of times people have this understanding that we're created for glory of God means, just simply to worship God, but the word glory really means to rejoice.
Achievement, achievement. It's
hmm
achievement.
It's a rejoice. The word rejoice, that's really what that word means, to rejoice. So, in other words, it even talks about in the Bible specifically why we were created. God said,
We're in His image.
I created you so that I might love you. So that right there tells you there's two reasons we were created because it brought God joy and because God
hmm
wanted to love us. Those are reasons why we were created in the first place. But getting to what Frank is sort of pointing out is like you talk about Brad like you don't want to be a god and everything, and I get that, and I totally get it. It's very humble of you. You're
I do it. I do it. I take on
you
the
do it.
responsibility if that's
You
what
do
God
it every
asked me
day
to.
though. Right,
But
exactly.
I'm not ready.
But the thing is, you already are doing that every day. You're creating like something that's very unique to Brad. Like I don't know if you draw or you paint or you sing or you work on a car, whatever your art is. even the way you're raising your children, just the very nature of who you are and how you put your words together, that's a form of creation. You are acting out your God, the Christ within you. That is a power
Absolutely.
that's unique to you. So it isn't something that you've got to go and I got
I
to
don't
become
know if
this
you're a
certain
parent, but
status.
absolutely, as a parent, it's 100% like that. You they describe it as the sun and the moon for a brief time, and I try to almost say like I'm not just the sun and the moon. Like I was like I have my faults. I'm very literal with my child because I'm much different than most people in the world. But no, you're absolutely right. Like you are their God in a sense. Like you decide if you want to teach them religion in the first place or not.
That's
Like
also the beauty of it too, because when you're proud of your child, and even my kid too, when I'm proud of her for doing something,
absolutely.
she's
Oh,
happy.
absolutely.
She's happy about it, and I get to see the joy in her for being happy that I'm happy of
Absolutely.
what she's done. And
Being
so it's a same. So that's
being
the
a
same
parent
thing that I think a lot of people miss
definitely definitely
with
makes you see
God.
a religious
Yeah,
factor
that
differently.
that's the thing that I see with people thinking about God. It's like they treat him like a drill sergeant when really he's the father, and then he
And
wants to be
He's
proud
your
of you
father.
for doing what you
that,
naturally do
that's
and you're excited to do.
right. And you know what, Frank, and what going back to earlier, Brad, you were talking about like what's the plan, like why are we here and all of that. Well, God already pointed out why we're here. Two reasons, the same reason He created us, to experience joy and to love. That's simple. Now, I'm not saying I know how that all happens. I don't know everything that, God has plans for us and how that unfolds,
Yeah,
but
but
that is
listen,
the reason.
I'll tell you right now because I've already seen it, and I'm the weird one like this. Love means you'll do something unconditionally. Now let me tell you, God puts you to work for 18-hour shifts. Are you gonna work? Are you gonna dig His trenches and build His Earth 2.0? Are you going to do what He, the boss, tells you to do unconditionally? You can go live in hell where you can do whatever you want. Let me tell you, everybody else is going to do whatever they want too. Or you can live in earth. And this is where my doubt of and Thomas, I mean, you filled me. I had long cost of thinking that heaven is much of a slave type manner, but I'm okay with it because God is my master. And that's the point. He uses the word master in the Old Testament because in the end, I think that's what it's all about. Are you going to work for God? Are you going to work for him?
You
Because
could
let
say
me ask you that:
the thing
if
is,
you think heaven is where you can get to just do whatever you want and magical, you get your own. You're the God. Yeah, in
you know,
heaven, you're the God.
if
No,
you ever get to a
why is
place,
that?
if you ever get to a place that you actually are going to enter into the sanctum, what in Gnosticism you call it heaven, but in Gnosticism we call it the pleroma. It isn't something where you just sort of sit around and grapes are fed to you. You get there because you want to strive to become more. That's the reason, very reason you would ever want to go there in the first place. So it would be within you. And you call it work, but the work isn't like the kind of work we do here where it's labor and you regret, like you hate getting up and you don't like pushing the stone around.
I think it's
It's a
much harder.
love of labor. It's a love of labor that
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
go out and you want to do this because it brings so much more back to you than what you're putting into it. You
Remember,
see?
remember, Brad, when we were talking earlier that and we kind of came to the same conclusion, and I thought this too, even with thinking about Gnosticism. When you go to heaven, a lot of people are thinking you're going to streets of gold and you're just walking around, you're doing nothing, you're just
But
relaxing, you're permanently
that is
retired and all
heaven.
that.
That
But the thing is, like you like we said before, there's more work to do when you're done with this life. You're not just sitting on your
listen,
butt doing
he,
nothing all the time. You
he,
there's got to be
heaven
more work to do because
heaven
when
is Olympus. There's no doubt about it. Heaven is the perfect place. But we don't stay in heaven. We come back to earth. After he wipes out the pikers, we come back to earth. That's what Revelation says anyway. And I'm kind of a believer of it. It's not that I necessarily like it, and it's not. But the whole point is, who do you want God to accept, and who don't you want God to accept? Because if you're one of the people that knows, and that's what I mean, I, I I don't know. I look at it very much like I want God to accept a lot more people than we have. I think that I have faith in humanity. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that we need to help people. It's not our fault that we're also misguided. We just need to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Can you
this
guys hear me?
craziness, all this crazy, yeah, all this crazy political stuff,
Yeah, I can hear you,
and
Thomas.
ow, I hit myself.
So
All the crazy political stuff. Go ahead. What do you want to say, Thomas?
I guess what I wanted to share is that, first off, God talks about in Timothy 2:4, he would have that everyone be saved. Now understand that when God talks about what he intends or what he would like to have, he isn't making some kind of wishful kind of proclamation. He's literally telling you that he intends for that to happen. That's why Christ talks about going to find the last sheep. He didn't even flinch. Those 99 were already saved. It was that one last sheep that he was most focused on. He talks about the prodigal son. So when it's all said and done, what God creates, everything will find reconciliation because what God creates is perfect. Now, the process that we're going through is because of the path we chose to walk away from that perfection. And that's when we left the pleroma to come here. And there will be those that, when we go back to the pleroma, like you're talking about, Brad, that will decide to come back. And they'll have to find their own reconciliation. Both of you have brought up like this idea of, when you brought up Revelation and the eternal flame, and Frank had given his, the interpretation of, which is a accurate historical account of what Hades is, or Gehenna, is that place that the Jewish at the time would take people that they were punished and they throw them into this fire that was burning day and night, what they call the eternal flame. So when it talks about that in Revelation, you have to keep it in that context. So it isn't that the punishment is the eternal flame, but the eternal flame is the eternal flame. The punishment that's eternal is that the soul and the body are eternally punished. In other words, eternally, totally done away with forever. And then you become a spiritual being and you enter into heaven or the pleroma. That's the way we understand. Like the second death is the death of the soul. The first death is the death of the body. And when both of those are finally released, then our spirit is free to live forever.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
profound. It really is. Um,
Thank you. Well, I should thank God because God is, like the one that's doing all this, right?
yeah,
This,
that's true.
this profoundness, right?
That's
But
true.
yeah, I really love what you guys are doing because I can see that both of you have similar understanding of kind of the vision that you both share, which is a beautiful one. But at the same time, you guys have a different take on some of the details, but you're very respectful about how you bring that out. So I definitely will bring up you guys' channel at some point when I have an opportunity on my own channel.
Okay, that sounds great, man. Um, yeah, it was really nice talking to you, Thomas. I really enjoy that. I saw your channel earlier, and I was just listening to it, and just the way you go about speaking and even talking with us. I'm really happy you could talk with us like this because you see how we kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and we kind of jump on each other's feet a lot. So that's kind of like
Hey, that's
yeah.
great because that's real, isn't that how it really happens out in the real world, right? Like when we're talking to
Hmm.
somebody and we just sort of like interject. There's a lot of the excitement, you got this thought in your head and you don't want to lose that thought, and so you're so eager to put it out there, and that's just so human, right, to do that. So I wouldn't like change a thing. I think you guys are doing great. That's awesome.
Yeah, this is very non-scripted. Everybody who's watching this, there
Yeah,
is no, we don't script any of this. We try to put some ideas together, like some things I would like to talk to,
Okay.
maybe about Atlantis or something
sure.
like that. But
I've got a few more minutes if you want, like go for a few more minutes. If you guys have anything else you want to talk about.
well, I mean, I'd like to probably save that for a different show if you want to, if you're okay coming on again in the future. You
Sure.
know, Okay.
I'd be happy to do that. I appreciate you guys, taking interest in my channel and invite me on.
Yeah, I'd
Well,
really like.
you're certainly a cool guy, and I subscribe to your channel on my channel so I can keep continuing with your series and all that.
Yeah,
I get
I
tied up for
also
work, so
subscribe to you guys' channel too. Been binge watching.
Okay, that's cool, man. There's a lot to watch. Um,
yeah.
they moved the live feed from the videos. I don't know why they changed that, so you have to go to live to see the other live feeds we have.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like I saw that like at a certain point there were no it was no more videos and I was like, okay, well maybe it's under the live section. So
Yeah, I don't know why YouTube did that. It was everything was nice and neat before, and then they had to go and mess it up. So
is that like a YouTube thing or maybe
that
there's like
is a
it is?
YouTube thing.
Oh
They
wow.
they changed just to put an extra button for live feeds and then videos, and I don't know
Hmm,
why, but
that's strange. Yeah. It seems like you don't like try to fix something that's not broken, but I don't know.
oh
Anyway.
yeah, yeah. YouTube fixes everything that's not broken. They're the one
Yeah.
exception to the rule.
Yeah.
There's
Um,
always a reason for everything.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
thanks guys again, and yeah, we'll look forward to us having part two.
Okay, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas.
And Thomas, I got
Thank you
your
as well.
I have your links down below for this video feed here. I believe it should show up. If it
Yeah,
doesn't, I'll put
thanks
it
for
in later. But
thanks for teaching me a lot about all this because I hear the term used a lot, and I kind of wasn't sure about a lot of the term. Trigger used the term, and I get embarrassed because Trigger's one of my better friends, and I don't like to act like I don't know what he's talking about. So I'm glad to have you on. You kind
Totally get what you're saying.
of
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
I like to simplify the message, but Thomas, you're really good at just extrapolating on all the finer
yeah,
details.
you're an excellent speaker, sir. That's great. I
Wow. Thank you
appreciate it.
guys. I appreciate you guys sharing that. Thank you.
You are,
It's
man.
very, very humbling,
I
especially coming from you guys.
I
It's
would I
humble.
I wish
You're
you all
welcome.
the luck in your endeavors as well,
Thanks, guys.
and in
Appreciate
your mess, not only your message, just to serve Christ, but and whatever else you got going on in life. You seem like a great and humble person, and I'm appreciated to meet you.
Thank you. Amen. Same to you guys. Amen. You guys have a great rest of your evening or morning, whatever it happens to be, right? Okay.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be almost morning here,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
but
guys, take care and thanks a lot again. Appreciate both of you.
okay. Thanks so much for coming by. I'm just gonna say goodnight, everybody, on We Are Aquarius. If you want to see more of this, you can check it out on channel here on the live feed, and if you want to see Thomas here, just go check out his link down below, and you can go to his channel and subscribe there. So thanks everybody for coming by, and have a great night.
Um,